I was on Cincinnati City Council. I was on the Hamilton County Commission. I worked very hard after I got there after riots in our city in 2001. I have a good track record there of cleaning up our city. If you visit now, you'll see the result of my work with a lot of others and to make Cincinnati a vibrant city again. And I'm very excited about all that progress. But I want to tell you, in many ways, one of the most important parts of my resume has nothing to do with any of that, but as something that you all be familiar with. Because I'm sure I'm looking at a room full of people who've broken through the glass ceiling and are still doing it every day. And one important part of my family is I come from a long line of women who've been breaking through the glass ceiling for about 150 years. My great-great-great-aunt was at Seneca Falls. She was actually kicked out of her church before the famous conference because she had the audacity to lead a meeting for abolition. And the minister told her, women don't get to lead meetings, so you're out of the church. My mom, to be glad to know, reinstated her 2 years ago, after about 150 years of being out. My great-great-aunt was, believe it or not, in the 1920s, the head of the Department of Corrections of New York City. In the progressive era, she was close to Teddy Roosevelt. My mother was the chairwoman of the board of the YWCA, helped build a battered women's shelter in Cincinnati. Her mother was also in the YWCA. Too often in Cincinnati, I'm introduced simply as my father's son, and I immediately correct people. If they don't mention my mother, they're leaving out all the best parts because of all that history. So I'm proud to be here today, speaking to a group of people who've broken the glass ceiling. I grew up in a family that has that tradition as well. And so I bring a lot of passion to the questions you're asking. There are so many ways this job can help women businesses succeed in Ohio. First, we obviously have to improve the overall environment here in Ohio for women, both in the workplace and in business. And I'm concerned about we're not where we need to be. Whether it's women employees, women-owned businesses, I don't think there's equal opportunity yet. We see still too much, and you see it playing out in the news just the last couple of weeks. Too many workplaces that are hostile to women. Equal pay is not where it needs to be. The Civil Rights Section of the Attorney General's office can do a lot about that. This office also can play a key role. A lot of the issues about whether or not there's equality and equal opportunity for women-owned businesses comes down to the law. A lot of jurisdictions don't know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do when it comes to programs that might help women-owned businesses. This is a job that can help provide that legal guidance to help them figure that out. But I'll say more than anything else I can do on this issue, I believe that women-owned businesses are every bit as qualified as male-owned businesses to do the work that's being put out every day by government and other places. So when you see inequality there, it means something else is going on. It means there's not enough open opportunity. To me, it means there are not enough decisions being made on the merits. Because if it was made on the merits, women would do as well as men like they do in every other area. And so one of my big passions in this office, in this campaign, is cleaning up decision-making in government that's not on the merits. That's too often determined by who you know, by who gives the most, because that's when you start to get people getting picked for things, not based on if they're good at something, but based on sort of the old boys network, cronyism, you name it. So I'm very passionate about cleaning up that from this office, and frankly, using this job to go around the state and make sure the government at all levels makes selections on who does work based on who's good at it, who's qualified, and not simply who people know. I think women-owned businesses will do far better in a world that's based on merits versus all the stuff we've been living with for a long time. So those are three of the things I'll do to make this a better environment for business in Ohio. Thank you.
The next question is very long, and if you need me to repeat it, I will. Let me start.
Okay. Luckily, you gave us advance copies. So.
Yes. The Attorney General is responsible for making appointments to a number of important positions, boards, and commission seats, such as the State Victims Assistance Advisory Council, the Ohio Peace Officers Training Commission, the Ohio Consumers Council Board, among others. Do you think more women should be represented on these panels and in other government positions? And if so, how would you improve gender diversity through your appointment authority?
Thank you. I think the question answers itself when you see the numbers of the boards you just referred to. We couldn't get the numbers. Apparently it was not on the website. They certainly called and they didn't know the answer. to the Victims Assistance Advisory Council. I see Mr. DeWine will have those numbers. But the other two boards you mentioned, the Peace Officers Training Commission, the Ohio Consumers Council Board, only had 3 out of 18 of those members were women. That's not good enough. Let me give an example of why it's not good enough. The Ohio Consumers Council, this is the group that represents, if you go to its website, the 4.5 million households in Ohio that pay energy bills. Now, the last time I looked, I didn't run to my household. It's not me. I would say at least 50%, but probably more than 50% of those households are run by women, right? So 22%, 2 out of 9 is not represented. And that's I think, true of the other board is 1 out of 9. We just talked about helping women businesses. The Jobs Ohio board has 0 women on it. 0 women. And this is the board that's making enormous decisions about who gets assistance from government to keep or bring their businesses to Ohio. So, of course, we need to do a better job here. These are boards that make enormous decisions that affect everybody. They need to be representative of our state. And when you look closely, they're clearly not diverse enough. They're not reflective of our population. And I work very hard putting good, well-qualified people, but making sure that we have diversity in all ways on these various boards and decision-making bodies.
How do you think the Attorney General's office can contribute to help make Ohio more competitive in pursuit of attracting businesses and jobs to our state?
Okay, well, we could answer this for about an hour, and I won't go there. Maybe let it know. I know you've heard from a lot of people already, but I'm glad you asked the question because too often this office is pigeonholed as only having a few roles. Every office in Ohio has to be thinking about its economic mission, its job creation mission, and you'll be glad to know we've laid out some very specific plans on how this job can help and should help and must help Ohio compete in the 21st century. By the way, I mentioned my time in Cincinnati. When I got to Cincinnati in 2001, we were struggling. We've learned a lot of lessons. A lot of what I'm mentioning is builds off of that success, where we now have huge growth all over our central region. We just landed GE about 6 months ago on our Banks project, so we have a very good track record. I'm proud to be part of that. The first thing, obviously, we want a better business environment overall. We need to be competitive when it comes to taxes, regulations, make it easy to do business. In Cincinnati, we created a one-stop shop for businesses, so they didn't have to go to 10 different offices just to get a deal done in the city. We sent them to one place. We looked at how we could sunset certain regulations and make it easier to work through the bureaucracy. The Attorney General can play a lot of roles there. I mentioned cleaning up government. A government, and this is the culture in too much of Ohio, including in the State House, a government where the decisions are based too much on pay to play and who gives money is not a good place for business. At least if you want to keep your taxes down. You don't want to waste money on bad deals. That's what happens in a pay-to-play environment. I worked in Russia after college for 3 years. We were helping St. Petersburg figure out how to compete, and the biggest problem they have is corruption. To the extent you're nickeling and diming businesses through all those frankly, sometimes illegal and certainly not ethical practices, you are making it harder to do business. So when I talk about cleaning up government, that's to make us a lot of better place to do business. One of the roles the Attorney General plays that I think should be much more aggressive is around the issue of incentives. Every year, the Attorney General is supposed to do and does a report tracking what incentives worked and what incentives didn't work. And if a company failed to keep up its commitment, to hold them accountable for those incentives. Now, when I was in Cincinnati, we do a lot of that work, because I'll sound like Sarah Palin here, but we look at Kentucky from our house. And we are always competing with Kentucky, and we're trying to keep businesses on our side, so we had to do that. But we got to be very careful that the incentives that we're putting out, spending your money, really work. And this office, I think, can be much more proactive and comprehensive in looking at those incentives. Cybersecurity is a huge issue in our state. If you talk to your bankers down the street, and there are a lot of them in Columbus, they're more worried about who's hacking their computers every day than what's happening, at ATM machines. That's the biggest threat. I think the Attorney General can really lead the way and make sure that whether it's banks or others, 5 more minutes, that's great. The cybersecurity is a huge issue, and the Attorney General can lead the way on that. Working with the feds, Columbus is one of the top 10 cities at risk in the country from cybersecurity, and the Attorney General, if we create a blanket of security by working with our businesses here in Ohio, we've just created one more reason why business might want to be in Ohio. So we should do that. To compete in the new economy, we need to continue to do what places like Columbus and Cincinnati have done, and that is create exciting places, urban cores in particular, where the young, talented people want to be. No incentive in the world will make up for the fact, if it happens, if young people are flocking to Boston and San Francisco and Atlanta and Washington. If we're losing that battle, folks, we never will compete. And so to continue the work we're seeing in cities like Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and others, to make sure these places are young, are exciting, and diverse, we just talked about diversity, and entrepreneurial in their field, that's critical to competing. In Cincinnati, I'm very proud that literally the neighborhood where the riots occurred, when I got there, it was open-air drug dealing, all up and down Vine Street. Now it's open-air restaurants, young people moving in, new businesses starting. We've got an incubator right on Vine Street that's generating businesses that are now creating national identities. So you create that exciting environment for young people. That's how you compete in the new economy. That involves making our cities safe, which the Attorney General can do. It involves working with the universities, so we have the kind of technology transfer that helps create jobs in the private sector. There's a lot we can do there. Richard Cordier did a great job of that. I'll do the same. And then one other thing, we've got to be very strategic. We have to take account, what are the best assets we have in this state, make sure we build on those. And those do include our universities. Includes places like Cleveland Clinic, like Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, where we have this consumer hub. It includes some of the great things we have here in Columbus. It includes the fact that we now have lower cost natural gas in the eastern part of Ohio. That's an international strategic advantage. And the Attorney General needs to work strategically with the other officials to figure out legally and in an infrastructure sense, how do we take best advantage of the things in Ohio we have, agriculture is another big one, that truly give us a competitive edge, not just in the national but the global economy. And sometimes I watch Ohio and Columbus, and I don't see enough of that kind of thinking. How do we take advantage of the best assets we have? Now I'm going to close, because I did have 5 minutes. I'm sure it's down to about 4.5 now. Let me be very, I'm not being political here. I want to just speak on a very important issue. I mentioned how important it is to get young people here in Ohio. We're talking about the millennials. I want to tell you about one big thing that will keep them from coming here if we don't fix it. And we fixed this in Cincinnati. When I got elected to Cincinnati City Council, we had a part of our Cincinnati charter that allowed discrimination based on sexual orientation. And 10 years after it passed, Procter & Gamble and Macy's and Kroger said, this is killing our recruiting. The next generation isn't interested in that kind of discrimination. Not just because they themselves may be gay, because their friends are. They just don't get it. And the longer, as other states are starting to tear down bans on marriage equality, that's where people are going to go. Even if everyone here doesn't agree with those things, this equality, the people you're trying to hire do. They won't go to a place. They don't want to be in a state or a city that they use discriminates against themselves, their friends, their family. And the longer we keep fighting this in Ohio, when even Utah and Kentucky and Virginia and New York and California are all tearing that wall down, again, we can build the greatest cities ever, but these young people are not going to want to be here. And if you ask me, the single biggest issue that will get us going economically, it's talented young people, and we have put up a wall around our state saying, stay away from Ohio, or if you leave Ohio, don't come back. Until we all get together and fix that problem, we also won't compete. So that's one of the many, many things this office can do to make us compete in the new economy. Thank you all very much.